From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to you. Another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 21st, getting deeper into the month of November and heading towards Thanksgiving. And if you watched the past couple of videos that I did, which are every Sunday, started on November 8th or 7th, November 7th. This is the third week we did this. The past couple of weeks I've been talking about making a case of why we don't do winter outlooks and why they're a waste of time, and why we just stick to a long-range lead of 5 to 6 weeks. So taking a look at the next 5 to 6 weeks lead time is what I'm concerned with, okay? Not down the road. That'll come with time. And it's not as cut and dry as most outlooks are suggesting, and there's reasons for that. But I also, in these videos, I like to, take a look at signals, okay? Signals that are down the road a little bit as far as snow is concerned. That's what everybody's concerned about. Everybody has to remember, though, it is still November 21st. And yes, you can get snow this early, but it's not normal, okay? It's not normal. This is what the average snowfall is for the month of November. And you see it's not much across our region, and we're going to probably finish below average in November. The reason they're even this high is because you get that rogue storm that averages in over a 30-year period, which skews the mean a little bit. Most of these years in December, you don't see much of anything at all, okay? So this is not atypical to not see snow to this point. Once you get into December, it starts to pick up a little bit, but it's not crazy like you'll see in January and February, which are the snowiest months. But it does pick up pretty notably here in the month of December, and I think we're going to do that again this year. Taking a look at our long-range table from Friday. Again, this is a 5 to 6 week long-range lead, and we have a day ahead of the front here that's going to be, which is today. We're expecting a little bit of a milder turn into the 50s. We're going to have another one of those days here on Thursday for Thanksgiving. It's going to just in time for Thanksgiving, and Black Friday will be a little bit milder than average until another cold front moves through at the end of the week. We were talking about maybe having some rain and snow with a wrapped-up system with that. It no longer looks to be the case. Looks like the two pieces of energy responsible for that are going to be separate, so we just get a cold front here on Friday. And it does look like that the rest of the month of November is not going to feature a snowstorm across the region. So our projection of below average or near to, we have actually snowfall near to slightly below average is probably going to be below average in most cases, okay? So you had a couple of little snow showers here and there from flakes that were already flying, but nothing really amounting to anything across the region except for some very high peaks in some rare cases. So it doesn't look like November is going to do it. So we're going to take our attention toward December, which I do think we're going to start getting accumulating snowfall across the region. But it's not going to be immediate, okay? So here is the general pattern over the next several weeks. This actually goes through early January now. And you see most of the time it's dominated by slightly below average temperatures. This near average period we have here between the 4th and 10th, I want to clarify that because once you get past the shorter term, I like to do more defined periods of warm and cold and near average, and they're only a couple days spread. Once you get out longer range here, we do a week at a time. So you're taking a snapshot of the week as a whole. So this period between the 4th and 10th, actually, I think the 4th, 5th, 6th time frame, you're going to have above average temperatures. And then the second half of that period, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, you're going to have temperatures that are going to be dropping. So the week as a whole is going to average near average. It's a little misleading. So I just want to clarify that because I do think we're going to see a warm period, and then I'll outline that here in this video. And we still have our winter storm signal for the second week of December listed, and this is the third. Actually, it's 4th straight week we have this now because we had this in the long range before I started doing the Weather Weeklies videos of an identified period of winter storm signal. I still like that period, okay? So we'll see. I'm not taking it off just yet, so that's a good sign if you're a snow lover looking to, well, does he still have it or did he take it away or did he move the dates? The dates can move around a little bit. We'll see. But it looks like it's going to be becoming more active at that time, and certainly colder than average is what we're projecting during that time as well. So you want me to pass a long-range table here? I want to go into the La Nina thing here because I want to talk about that. This is the newest update from the CPC, okay? It's the Climate Prediction Center. And it's pretty much the same as what it was in the October update. Still expecting a weak La Nina, just under minus 0.1 ONI, so degrees Celsius. And so it's not really, there's not really much change there. It's expected that once we get toward the end of winter, it'll start climbing back toward neutral. And that will happen as we can continue through the spring as well. So no real change there. The change that I'm really paying attention to are the week-to-week changes. Now, in last week's video, I talked about where not only what the temperatures are here in the equatorial Eastern Pacific, but where the concentration of the coldest temperatures are going to be along this equator region here, or the Nino regions. And there was a trend to start putting colder temperatures here on the eastern side of the La Nina area, okay? So this is what it looks like currently, okay? You see the colder, the brighter blues here indicating where the colder waters are currently. So if it was central based, it would be out here. Eastern base is leading out toward the South American continent as you get closer to the Peruvian coast, okay? This is just a trend we're following. It's not saying it's going to become east-based. This could be just a temporary thing. But if it ends up east-based, this is going to be better for prospects down the road when people are saying, okay, well, we're going to start off colder than average in November, December, which is going to end up happening. Okay, that's a given. But once you get to, January, February, March, what does it do down the road? And a lot of it's going to be predicated by where this is. And a lot of this has to do with where this is located. Has a lot of influence on the Madden-Julian oscillation, or the measure of the best convection along the equatorial Eastern Pacific and how far east it gets, okay? This will have an effect on that. The farther east-based it is, the better chance that convection can make a little bit closer move toward the international date line, which is more conducive for our winters here. So it doesn't mean January, February, March, you're going to have this big blowtorch here. Okay, some people are starting to say that, and those that have done seasonal outlooks, most of them have a front-loaded winter. Back end is like, probably a bit too warm. I would say that's not necessarily true, and that's why we stop at 5 to 6 weeks. Here is the current ENSO forecast. This is produced by the CPC every single week, and this is I actually superimposed over this chart. These are the values at each Nino region. Okay, so you have all these regions out here on this image. This is the sea surface temperature anomalies. The blues, of course, are below average temperatures. The oranges and reds are above average temperatures in each region. So along the East Coast is pretty warm. Here's your Nino regions right here. So Nino 4 is all the way out here out by the international date line. Okay, Nino 3.4 is right here, just to the east of that. Then you have Nino 3 east of that, and 1 and 2 is right here. So when you're looking at this chart, they break down each of those regions, okay, of where they are, and measure the composite water temperatures in that region relative to average. So these are what the numbers are, the raw numbers, okay? And there's been a trend to be a little bit more eastward over the last couple of weeks, and that continued again this week. You see the Nino 4 region, the far western region, is still unchanged. And then you got a little milder, went up a little bit here in the Nino 3.4, Nino 3 regions in the middle. And look at the far east near the Peruvian coast. It actually dropped a little bit. So the trend has been to push this a little bit further east. And if that's the case, that could have implications downstream if you're east-based rather than central-based, which most people are suggesting that it's going to be. And this could very well reverse and go back to central again. It's happened. It has happened in the past. We looked at an analog last week of 2005, 2006, which I like for this winter. If you look at the sea surface temperature anomalies, this was November, and it was generally where it is now. Okay, the coldest temperatures are right here. Compared that to this image right here, there's not much difference there. Not much difference between November 2005 and what it is right now. So if you want to do a comparable analog and say what's the number one match, I'd say it's probably this. And you say, okay, well, that's great. Well, what did it do in that winter? Well, that winter we had kind of near to very slightly below average snowfall across the region. So, for example, if you had an area that's expecting 32, they would get like 28, okay? So it's still active. It's just not, and some areas got above average within our region, especially in our far northeastern region. So it's not there's no such thing as an exact match 1-to-1. Every winter is different, of course. And, you could certainly get above average snowfall in this region as well. But I just wouldn't jump the gun on too much. Because I'm looking at just from a climate standpoint, climate background state, it supports something like a 2005, 2006 winter currently to me. Okay, now it doesn't mean it's going to do that going forward. We don't know. In 2005, 2006, it started heading back toward the international date line and became more central based with time. Okay. No signs of that right now. So that's something I just want to continue to monitor going forward. And why is that important? Because the convection along the equatorial Eastern Pacific and actually going all the way back in the Indian Ocean is what we're concerned about. This has an effect with the jet stream and how it moves. And the reason for that is if you have a very strong area of convection, which we don't have currently, it's in a circle of death, which means there's no dominant convection features across the globe right now. And this whole area right here, there's no dominant areas of convection, but you can see where that is, right along the line, goes all the way across here, right along the equator. That's where your tropical convergence zone is. That's where you have a lot of convection firing. So if you have one dominant area, that is where you get your phases, okay? And each phase represents something in different parts of the world. So let's just say this area here in the maritime continent becomes dominant. That's phases 3, 4, 5. Actually, Indian Ocean's over here, 1, 2, and 3, and then you have 4 and 5 as the maritime continent. So if it's most active here, that is typical of a La Nina to be in the maritime continent regions. And right now, I'm not seeing a forecast that will take any convection to the maritime continent. It's more like phase 6 temporarily, and then eventually phase 7. Once you get closer to the international date line with this convection, and then when it's more dominant out here, that's better for our troughs in the eastern United States, where you can at least get cold, and with a stormy pattern that can lead to snow. So we're not quite there yet. That's going to take some time to get there. So that's why you're not going to see any snow through the end of the month, okay, or even early December. Now, there's a reason this convection is important, because what it does is there's latent heat processes that will actually shoot poleward and allow the jet stream to change. It'll affect the jet stream where you get ridging. If you have the best convection out here near the international date line, it'll push this jet stream up and over, and will allow this to drop down as a trough. What goes up must come down. You have a trough in the east and ridging in the western United States. So this is something we're going to be monitoring over the next couple of weeks. Now, the Madden-Julian Oscillation right now, okay, is in the circle of death. As it is expected, once we get to early December, you're going to go briefly into phase 6, okay? And phase 6 looks like this. See that? See all the warmth across the United States? And then after that, it goes into phase 7, which is a cooler look. Not super cold. That's phase 8. Phase 7 is a slightly cooler than average pattern. So we will get a warmer period for a couple of days in, maybe the 4th, 5th, 6th of the month of December, and then it's going to start going back down again once this goes into phase 7. You can see that here, and if you look at the projections of temperatures at that point during that week, it looks like this. So there is the 4th and 5th time frame, and you can see what it looks like. Compare this to a phase 6 look of the Madden-Julian Oscillation. That looks pretty close. Pretty close, okay? So it's projecting a phase 6 look, which is what this is. All right, but if it's going into phase 7, it doesn't last that long. Here's the period prior to that. We have cold now. Near Thanksgiving, you get Black Friday, you get a quick return to average, or maybe very slightly above, and then you get colder temperatures that follow that through the end of the month, and actually goes into early December before all of this starts to spread eastward, and then it eventually gets you, by the time you get to the 4th or 5th time frame, you get a look like this, which is a phase 6 look. After that point, again, going into phase 7, after that point, and that is a slightly cooler than average pattern. So you're going to start to see this from that point, from the 4th, 5th. Look what happens. See how it's going away? It's starting to dissipate, and this will be replaced after that by cooler, slightly cooler than average temperatures. And it'll start up here first, and it's already starting to build a little bit at this point, and it'll work its way southeast. We'll be back in the cooler temperatures after that point. So a lot of this is going to be Madden-Julian Oscillation driven at that point, and it's looking more and more likely that we're going to hit phase 6. And then after that, most of the spaghetti plots go into phase 7. Where it goes from there, that's a down-the-road discussion, because this only goes to the 19th of December, but it is solidly in phase 7 for a while, okay, after that 4th, 5th, 6th time frame, or maybe even 7th, when we are slightly above average. And what does that look like here on the temperatures? Again, this is relative to time of year. Using Lehigh Valley International Airport here, our centermost point of our coverage area, you can see here is today. Cold front comes through. Then we have another warmer shot here on the Thanksgiving holiday itself. After that point, Black Friday and beyond, we are kind of upper 30s to low 40s in that range for about a week or so. And then here's that spike in temperatures toward the end of, or actually when we get to the 4th, 5th, 6th time frame. Look what the temperatures go up here. You can see that. Now this is relative to average. So when you see charts like this, you're like, oh, that's a blowtorch. Well, it's not conducive for snow, I'll give you that, but it's not exactly a torch necessarily. It's still relative to average at the time of year. And at this time, 47, 48 degrees is above average for this particular location. Okay? It should be a little cooler than that, something more like this once you get into that period. Okay? So temperatures are going to continue to drop into the lower 40s as far as normal highs. So this is relative to average. So it's not a blowtorch. It's not talking about 60s and 70s again. We're talking about, upper 40s near 50 kind of thing for a couple days. And then we go back down into the colder after. It doesn't have lasting power to see this last that long. So we look at that first week, or the period between the 4th and 10th, that entire week that we took on the long range chart. It says near average, but that's because the beginning of that period is going to be slightly above, and by the end of that period, you're slightly below. So just so you understand how that works. But we are looking at snow signals yet, but it's going to be waiting a little bit. All right, here is the Euro Weeklies, same location, Lehigh Valley International. I'm using the centermost point, but you can look at anywhere across the region, and it's still relative to the area, but you can see some jumps here right in this region, right in this area here. That's during the second week of December, once you get past that mild period. And there's still a signal in here for something. As you can see here, it's starting to pick up a little bit. And then that continues going deeper into December, where you get a lot more members here getting excited about some snowfall prior to Christmas. I don't want to get anybody excited about a white Christmas just yet, but there is the opportunity, at least this year, whereas in past years there's no way. You had some Christmases, I remember here recently, that were very, very mild. It doesn't look like that's going to happen this year. So at least as long as you get the cold air in place, you have a fighting shot. This is at a time of year where the average temperatures are lower than they are right now. We're talking about 40s for average highs that will eventually get into the 30s once we get into January. Okay, for normals, unless you're down in Philadelphia, then it stays in the 40s. But this period is a period of interest, and it has been for a while, because one of the things we're looking at here is the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is your blocking, and it's continuing to showing a blocking signal in that period that I identified a while ago, and it's been very consistent showing that blocking during that time frame between the 8th and the 12th, which is the beginning of the second week of December. So somewhere in the second week of December we're looking at, and I actually highlighted this period here when it starts climbing toward neutral. That's usually where you get, this is usually at a time where you're accompanied by a storm threat. So our winter storm signal will remain for that. The one on this Friday, we would put that as a winter storm signal on purpose because it didn't look like there was enough support for that. And now it looks like it's just going to be a frontal passage. So through the end of November, I think we're going to remain virtually snowless, okay? Aside from a few arbitrary flakes with frontal passages. But after that, once we get into the second week of December, I think is when we start to turn this on a little bit. And you'll have some periods here where you're going to have some snow chances going forward. So just be patient. It's still November. Again, like I said, November doesn't produce much typically. And the only reason that we have this look here of any measurable precipitation in the month of November is because you have like maybe 1 out of every 5 years you'll have some measurable snow. Maybe we had a freak big storm like we had in 2018 that came out of nowhere. That all figures into this 30-year average. Most of those years you see nothing or very little. And this is one of those years. Once we get into December, it picks up considerably. And then even more so as we go into January and February. So, I know everybody heard people in the media talking about early start to the winter, and they're getting discouraged. Well, if you follow these outlooks that I've done for a while here, I said the best chance is going to be after Thanksgiving this year, not before. Probably wouldn't have anything before that. And it's not what people want to hear, but it was reality. Okay, so again, we stick to 5 to 6 weeks for a reason, because I'm much more accurate in that time frame, because it's a shorter time frame and it's a smaller sample size, so it's easier for me to do that. But like I said, if I want to target something, I would say the second week of December and beyond is when we start getting into that. So there's still time to get into the My Pocket Meteorologist text alerts if you have not done so already. Text alerts and premium forum subscriptions are available. You can look right above me here in the video. It has the exact address of where to go to that. You just select the winter products, and it will take you right to the My Pocket Meteorologist winter page where you can sign up and get all the information about that. So there's still time to do that. We had a lot of advanced subscriptions already, so if you are interested in the text alerts ahead of, and you have to do it soon because it's going to be, like I said, it's going to start snowing here very soon. Okay, these winter events are going to start creeping up. These are the areas that we cover. These are all the counties. If you live in one of these counties, we can serve you in text alerts and the premium forum. We actually have premium forum members outside of this area, so you don't have to be. You're outside of this area. You can still be part of our premium forum and get the discussions. To get an idea of what's going to happen elsewhere, just outside of our region, and maybe some bordering areas. Like we have some people that have the forum subscription down here in Washington D.C. area. We still cover that on our map. Our snow maps are still covering those areas, so we can still do that. But the text alerts itself are limited to these counties in green. To quick summarize here, we have the La Nina progression we're going to continue to monitor over the next several weeks. Again, whether it's east-based or central-based makes a difference, because if it is east-based, that convection that I talked about with the Matt and Julian oscillation is allowed to come further east toward the international date line as opposed to be stuck in the maritime continent further west. So we're going to watch that progression to see if this is, in fact, a trend toward an east-based. 1 week or 2 weeks is not a big enough sample size to determine that, and it may go back to central again. We'll see. It did that in 2005, 2006. It went back to central again. So we want to monitor that progression, because that'll tell us, kind of give us clues of what's going to happen down the road, not so much in the next 5-6 weeks, but beyond that. Okay. Colder than average temperatures for at least the second half of November, so the remainder of November, and at least the first part of December, so the first couple of days. Then we're going to have that transient milder period that's going to take place with maybe like between the 4th or so and the 7th, and then turning colder again. But we're going to be following the Matt and Julian oscillation progression, which is going to determine those warm and cold periods as I showed. If it goes into phase 7 a little quicker, it doesn't last too long. Right now I'm expecting that to happen, so we'll see how that works and continue to follow that progression. If it does stay in phase 6 longer, we're going to stay warmer longer, okay? But I still think it has an end time. There's some other things, Rossby waves, things like that. They're going to kick this into gear, I think, and kick that out of there with time. And we're watching for storm signals beginning the second week of December, okay? So before that, just have some patience, and don't get excited about any of these little ghost threats that show up on the GFS, because they do that all the time, and they throw these head fakes at you, especially during seasonal transition. Just don't get too excited yet. We're looking at the second week of December onward for those changes to start creeping up. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchis. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 21st. Join us again next week, and I'll continue all these different progressions, and we'll go through the next 5 to 6 weeks and see where we're at that point. Again, looking for snow. You're probably waiting for a little bit, but it's not much longer from right now. I mean, it's almost Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving week this week, so it's coming. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get the snow threats to be a little bit more legitimate in this area as we head into the month of December. Take care.